What is up, Scream team? Zach Cherry here, and I just got back from seeing Scream 6, Scream VI, Screevy, whatever you want to call it. This is going to be completely spoiler-free, so don't worry about me giving away any plot details. That will come later in the future. So this is going to be kind of my first impressions of it. And firstly, I actually went to what it was dubbed a fan event, which was in 3D. I saw this movie in 3D, and they were giving out free poster. So I actually have the poster here, which is the poster that we've seen in the promotional stuff. Really cool design. Really like this one, so I'm going to frame it. I also got one of these. What would you call this, a tumbler? The Scream cup, the Scream 6 cup with the topper. But anyway, I went to this fan event, which it's funny that it was called an event because literally the only thing that was really kind of eventy about it was that they played the Demi Lovato music video ahead of the movie, and there were some like fun little interviews and stuff and like games with the cast. But yes, getting into my first impressions on Scream 6. And I actually wrote all this out on my computer, so I'm gonna look over here. I've got the pros and the cons because there's both. Firstly, I think that this movie was a lot of fun. Like, this might be the most fun, of course, still like from the perspective of seeing it for the first time. It was a lot campier than I expected. From the trailers, this looked like it was going to be very dark and gritty, and surprisingly it wasn't. I mean, I don't want to say it was the funniest Scream movie because I've had a lot more laughs in other entries, but it definitely was a lot of fun. And I think a lot of that is kind of lent to the setting of just being in New York City rather than just being Woodsboro again, because I think that the environment itself, like it just felt so much more interactive. Even after Screams 2 and 3, we're just shown with those movies that the setting can really transform the movie and give it its own unique identity. And this also showcases the fact that Ghostface not only can they be anyone, but they can be anywhere. It doesn't have to be just relegated to Woodsboro. And changing the setting from Woodsboro was the first item on my Scream 6 wish list, so I'm glad that we got that with this movie. Another thing that was really important to me, that was at least on my wish list, is that I wanted this to be very like character focused, just like having our core characters all together in the same movie as like one unit. And I'm happy to report that we got that in this movie. They saw the potential for the surviving characters from the last movie and, really gave them a lot of room to grow here. So this is a very emotionally driven story for the core four characters, Sam, Tara, Mindy, and Chad. Each one individually, I'd say for Tara, firstly, she was given so much more to do here, mostly in the fact that she got to explore relationships with the other characters outside of her sister, because we never really got to see that in Scream 5. And I'd say that as a character, Tara has a lot more agency in this movie. I thought that that wasn't going to be the case. It seemed like she was just going to be Sam's sidekick, but she's just as much integral to the story as Sam and gets just as much prominence in the movie as well. Just in terms of Chad, this was something that I predicted, but I'm glad that we got to see it because he was given so much more characterization just to match the range that I think that Mason Gooding as an actor brought to the role that we saw in the fifth movie. But it's, again, like another thing that's really expanded on here. Mindy, I actually think that Mindy was probably the most consistent just in terms of like her appearance in Scream 5 to this movie. And that's not to say that it's like a good or bad thing. I think that Mindy definitely comes off as being more sympathetic this time around. And then with Sam, who, I mean, I always really liked Sam in the first movie. Like, if I wasn't crazy about her when I first saw it, I still liked her as a character, and my love for Sam as the character has just grown more and more. And I feel that with this movie, she's the strongest part of it. I think that a lot of people who were kind of down on Sam before are going to reappraise their opinion of her. I personally think that she's kind of like the Jamie Lloyd of the Scream franchise, just in comparison to like Jamie Lloyd in Halloween. There's a lot of parallels just in terms of both franchises, but all of the strengths that I found with her in the last movie that, might have been hidden by, let's face it, bad dialogue. I think that here it's definitely brought to the surface more. Like, I think that she was more accessible this time around than she was ever before. But I think that probably most people could agree that Sam is the most interesting character in the movie. And not just for what her connection is to Billy in the past, but just for like the character struggles that, she has to face here. And just with all of the sort of like screen time that these characters get, this movie does feel a bit long. Like, this is the longest movie in the Scream franchise. It's 2 hours and 2 minutes. There is an end credit scene. That's all I'll say about that. But every scene that included the core four, or at least a member or multiple members of the four core, all felt necessary. Like, it didn't feel like there was a lot of filler here. Of course, maybe I'll recognize something on rewatches, but as of right now, I'm happy with just like how everything turned out, of just like the relevancy of every scene. In terms of radio silence and their direction, they really brought back the suspense that I felt was missing in 5. That movie had a very zippy, snappy pace to it. Like, everything moved along very fast to the point where we weren't really afforded the opportunity to become as engrossed in the horror of any given situation, because it was always more focused on like, how do we get to the next scene and the next scene. But here we get a plethora of all these intense and drawn out set pieces, which helps to bridge scenes together, and I think will make this a very rewatchable movie. And even though, a lot of these set pieces I found to be very predictable personally, they still all were very tense. Like, my heart was palpitating, I'll tell you that. We get several chase scenes in this movie, which has been something absent since Scream 3, really. And while I don't think that any of them lived up to the amazingness of, say Gale's chase scene in Scream 2, I fully appreciate and respect the hell out of the effort here, because this is something that us fans have been asking for a really long time, and they obviously listened and they delivered. So having said that, now I'm going to move on to the cons of this movie for me, and mainly I think that there's a lot of twists and subversions of expectations here, which normally I wouldn't say is a bad thing, but it feels like a lot of it is pandering to what the fans want. And when I say the fans, I don't necessarily mean a collective of the fans, but, particular people who are very loud and vocal on the internet. And just for the sake of not spoiling anything, I'm not going to go into details about what these are, but you can probably imagine just any message board where some rando will say, "We've never seen this done before in the franchise. I think it will be really fresh if they tried that." And the problem with that is that it's just kind of flashy sensationalism, which doesn't necessarily add all that much nuance or texture to the plot. It's just kind of there for the sake of being there. Like, they can say, "Oh, look, we did this." Because in terms of the villain side of the motive and all that, this is the film's weakest aspect. This is obviously the same writers as 5, and when we kind of look at that last movie, it was riddled with plot holes when it came to the killers and their plan. And for me personally, the murder mystery and the killer's motive and all that, like, that's what I glom onto with these movies. I love a crafty and competent killer who can throw our main heroes for a loop, because I want to be duped by the killers in the end. And what Wes Craven did in his movies that was so genius is that him and his team like really deconstructed the killer's plots to the point where if you're paying close attention, like, everything makes sense and you can conceivably connect the dots on your own. And that makes rewatches even more exciting because you're looking for new clues that you didn't notice before. Of course, this is something that's very specific to me. Like, I'm a very analytical person, so I like to look at the plots of these movies very logically. And I think that much like Scream 5, this screenplay is more so emotionally charged, which forces the directors to approach their work in a way that focuses more on the characters while leaving the other aspects like the murder mystery elements more as an afterthought. And again, that's not a bad thing because the characters become the impetus for moving the story forward, but I still think that there could have been more of a balance between character and mystery, especially considering that this movie had a longer runtime to accommodate all of that. But again, what we get for character is amazing. And as much as I've criticized these new writers, Guy Busick and James Vanderbilt, they know how to write compelling emotional character arcs, and they do bring a lot of good ideas to the table. I just wish that they would consult with another writer, or, you know, just someone who has a little bit more wherewithal when it comes to creating a semi-cerebral whodunit murder mystery. As far as the new characters are concerned, they're mostly disposable. Again, this is more to do with the writing. This might actually be the first entry in the franchise where a new character isn't the immediate fan favorite. You know how, like, in Scream 3, it's Parker Posey, Scream 4, Kirby Reed. And having mentioned Kirby, who's obviously back, I do want to touch upon her a little, and I'm not going to give anything away as to what her role is, but I will say that I can see what they were trying to do with her character, and I don't think that it was very successful at all. Like, don't get me wrong, I loved seeing her back, and, you know, she was great every time she was on screen, and especially with some of the interactions between her and the other returning characters, but her story just felt very half-baked. Like, it could have been ironed out a little bit more. In terms of Gale, this is another one that I don't want to say too much about, but Gale's inclusion in Scream 6 might be the biggest letdown for me. That's all I'm gonna say. Courteney Cox is great, of course, but I wasn't particularly enthralled by the direction they took with her character. But I will say that there still has never been a single bad Scream movie. Like, I'll say that Scream and Child's Play are the most consistent franchises just in terms of quality, and I am truly excited for, you know, the future of these characters and the franchise, because I still think that there are many stories that can be told here. So bring on Scream 7. I will be there opening night to see it, but I am going to work on a full plot breakdown. You know, that's where I'll really get into the nitty-gritty of things and discuss spoilers while, you know, giving you a more in-depth scene-by-scene analysis. So you can stay tuned to the channel for that. But as far as where Scream 6 sits in my ranking, I don't have an answer for that just yet. I'm still processing it, and I will eventually do a ranking video and probably Ghostface Killer rankings, and, you know, all that fun stuff is gonna come in the future. But I need to watch this a few more times, obviously. If you want to see even more Scream related content, you can check out one of these videos right over here. Until next time, I've been Zach Cherry, and I'll be right back.